Today I'm going to be reviewing a book written by a martial arts legend. Hi guys, my name is Joe and welcome to Fighting Words, Martial Arts Library. On this channel I review martial arts books and talk about other martial arts related subjects. The subject for today's review is Dynamic Stretching and Kicking by Bill Superfoot Wallace, published in 1982. Now, Mr. Wallace began with a varied martial arts background. He actually began in the grappling arts. He wrestled in school. His first Eastern martial art was judo. And then he began training in karate after a leg injury hampered him from continuing with judo. Ironically, this injury to his right leg turned him into an exceptional kicker with his left leg. The idea was that in class, when everyone would kick with their left leg, he'd kick with his left leg. And then when they kicked with their right leg, he'd kick with his left leg. So he's doing twice as many kicks as everybody else. Ultimately, he developed a tremendous degree of flexibility and dexterity in his left leg and became legendary for it on the point karate circuit before transitioning into full contact kickboxing, where he retired undefeated. The book begins with a pretty suitable introductory section. It includes an anatomy lesson on how muscles work. He also talks about all the major muscle groups in the body and the methodology by which one should stretch. Next, we get into the physical preparation side of things. This makes up the bulk of the book, over 100 pages worth. We begin with a section on warm-ups, and I do appreciate how Mr. Wallace points out that warm-up should not be done in like a fast or jerky motion. These are all meant to be done with control and to be done slowly and fluidly. He's got warm-ups pretty much from head to toe concerning all the major joints, with the exception of the knee joint, which is a little unusual, but maybe some of the later exercises he considers covering that area. But outside of that, we're talking all the other major joints, beginning with the neck, going all the way down to the ankles. He will include things like, finger exercises in order to warm up the hands. After that, we get into upper body exercises. These sort of feel like a continuation of the warm-ups. There's not a whole lot here on building a tremendous amount of strength. I will note that these are all body weight exercises. He does include some exercises for strengthening the neck, including bridging exercises, which I strongly suspect he got from wrestling. He also includes exercises for the abdomen and the back. It's easy to see how these relate to kicking because that's sort of your support structure. If you're going to be lifting one leg away from your body, you need a strong trunk area in order to do that. Following that is a section on lower body exercises. I like that we begin with what he refers to as knee bends, which free squats. It also has a lot of flexibility style exercises, a number of stretches, a number of hamstring exercises. He also includes some apparatuses. I don't know what the plural of that word is. He uses stuff like chairs and bars to help support and stabilize one part of his body while he's working on another part of his body during this section. This overall part of the book ends with 2 brief stretching exercises, as well as some footwork drills. Since he prefers to be in a side stance for his particular fighting system, these footwork drills are basically about what we would call lateral movement, but because his opponent is off to his side, it would be sort of advancing and retreating. They are all linear exercises, though. After that, we get into the more combative section of the book, focusing on kicks. He begins by outlining his particular kicking system. I think it's sort of a nice touch that in this section he does advise the reader to sort of develop their own kicking style, but the rest of this book is going to be on how Bill Wallace uses his kicks including in conjunction with punches. He spends several pages talking about how he prefers to do his 3 primary kicks. That's the side kick, the roundhouse kick, and the hook kick. And he will differentiate how he prefers to do them from how he refers to the traditional methods of doing them. And I'm sure many of you watching this are already familiar with the idea, but all of his kicks come from the same high knee chamber. So his knee is lifted about chest level, and that is where all of his kicks come from. The idea being that the person on the receiving end sees the knee come up and doesn't know whether they need to block going straight down or to the left or right side of them. After going over the basic kick mechanics, he moves on to combinations. These include examples of different combinations, some partner drills that one can do in order to build one's combinations, as well as some strategy tips throughout. For instance, he likes to use a side kick to the body to sort of stop his opponent and bring his guard down before beginning other attacks. Other sections in here, he talks about how to set up his kicks with punches, as well as using kicks as counters, or what he refers to as defensive kicks. Mostly that section comes in the form of a list. And then he also refers to jamming, which would be essentially using his leg to stop an opponent's attack short of its intended extension. You see this more in point sparring than you do in other venues. And finally, the book is sort of rounded out with a brief biography on Mr. Wallace himself that was current when the book was written, again in 1982. A few things have happened since then. As far as the pros go, this book has a lot of good drills for building a lead leg kicking style. The book itself is very systematic. The root of his system is getting that high chamber and kicking off of that. And then everything else is built to sort of support that, from the footwork to his use of strikes. So it's nice to have sort of a complete system. It's nice to have, if you are interested in lead leg kicks, discussions on the various mechanics and exercises you can do in order to, for instance, build up endurance in your kicks. I think that there are things in this that are applicable to both point sparring as well as full contact environments. As far as the cons go, one thing that stood out to me, I'm not a physical therapist, but I do follow several on YouTube. It looks like some of the exercises that he's showing, I think a physical therapist would probably advise you not to do, especially some for the lower back and for the neck. When I started getting into grappling, I used to do a lot of bridging to help strengthen my neck as well, but I have seen actual doctors go, you probably shouldn't do that. I also wonder if some of the combinations might not work very well in a modern environment. For instance, he shows a few combinations where he's lifting his leg up, kicking 5 times, and then setting it back down. It's hard for me to imagine, even in point sparring, that anybody could get away with that, before the opponent countered or moved or something. So I think there are going to be some parts of this that are not going to be very applicable. And finally, it is sort of an unconventional way of fighting. So it's not going to be a one-size-fits-all. This is not going to be something that everyone is going to be able to take and use. You're probably already going to have a degree of flexibility and dexterity in your legs in order to incorporate any of this. As far as recommendations, if you, like me, enjoy kicking, I think that there are a lot of good things that can be taken from this, even if you don't incorporate the entirety of the system. I think, a lot of the stretching and a lot of the kicking endurance drills and coordination drills, I know I've incorporated those and have worked some of those in the past. If you fight from sort of a side-on stance, this might give you some ideas as to what you can do as far as kicking goes if you're not as used to that sort of methodology. So it would be hard for me to sort of see this as a standalone text, but I think that if you can find it, it would have some good ideas for some people to incorporate into their own kicking style, either for point fighting or for full contact fighting. Anyway, that's all I have for this week. If you would like to support the channel, or if you have a suggestion for a book review, please consider donating to my Ko-fi account. I'm going to put a link to that in the description. And again, thank you for following me here, and I'll see you later.